it was wild because when the paramedics came to pick him up and put him on a gurney, they picked him up and his leg just completely turned another way and just pretty much just came off at that moment. As a kid, I was probably maybe like 12 or 13 years old, something like that. I grew up in Harlem. But my parents, my mom and dad lived on the east side. My mother's mother lived on the west side in a housing project on the west side. I spent a lot of my time on the west side with my grandmother because that's where all my friends were. And it was just a more comfortable situation where I would go outside and, hang out with friends and stuff like that. And, in New York City, we have a lot of like famous homeless people. On the trains in different neighborhoods and stuff like that. And I can remember there was this one guy who was just a staple in the neighborhood. He was homeless, but he was always around. People would always, give him food, give him clothes, give him stuff. But, he was homeless. He lived on the street. Another thing that happens a lot in New York City is this, it's a lot of car accidents. A lot of things happen on the roads. There's a lot of road rage. There's a lot of this and that. And I can remember being upstairs in the evening. We lived on the fifth floor. In the projects. And I can remember hearing a collision, a car crash of some sort, and then looking out the window. And, when these things happen in the neighborhood, people start to gather. A lot of people start to come around and see what's going on. So, of course, I went outside to see what was happening, and I saw that it was the homeless dude from the neighborhood. And a cab had crashed into him and pinned him in between another car. And it pinned him I guess from the knee down or something like that. And a quick little side note, the neighborhood descended on this cab driver and beat the mess out of him, by the way. But
because it was some reckless stuff,
right? I'm not even sure if what the cab driver did that was wrong, or I really don't know. But I just know that they pulled him out of the car and they they beat the mess out of him. But the paramedics came, and at this point he was down on the ground, and I could see that his leg was injured, but it was wild because when the paramedics came to pick him up and put him on a gurney, they picked him up and his leg just completely turned another way and just pretty much just came off at that moment or whatever. And it was wild because everybody kind of reacted to that was out there. It was just
it's 50 people going at one time.
Exactly. So he didn't die right there at that moment, but he did pass away. And that was just, a moment that, as a youngster, that dealing with death and seeing it firsthand and seeing how delicate we are as human beings and how, shit happens. This is just organized chaos. Anything could happen and anything will happen. And, you're not promised tomorrow. And it's real. That was just a moment of clarity for me as a kid. Oh, wow. Anything could happen,
I'm assuming he probably bled out, or I know there's major arteries in your knee. Cause you're if he was pinned from the knees down, mm-hmm. You would think somebody would live through that, right?
Right. Man, I was a kid. This was many, many years ago. It could have been a little higher up, and that could have been the situation where it hit an artery in his thigh or something like that. But, the one thing that really stuck out to me was the leg. When they put him on the gurney, the leg remained. It was wow. And again, just the collective, oh shit, from the crowd. It was just wow. So yeah, at the time, the paramedics was picking up two people. They were picking up the dude who had got pinned
and picking up the cab driver.
And the cab driver. So yeah, that was wild.
He's yo, what happened to him? Those don't look like car collision injuries.
Exactly. So,
oh, that's crazy, man. Man, that's very unfortunate.
Yes.
Yeah, that does show how delicate as human beings we are. And then it's crazy to see that there's some people who have lived through way worse, like immense worse scenarios, and they've lived and they have like little to no scars to
absolutely tell. Or have even lost something like limbs and still survived. So yeah, man, you
got people walking around with no arm, half a face from a chimpanzee attack, missing half their liver, talking about this happened like 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Insane, man.
Yeah, so there was that. I have another story from that same housing projects as well. I think I might have been, I think this happened before the whole cab driver, homeless guy incident.
How old were you when this cab driver incident happened?
I think I was probably maybe 14, something like that.
Okay.
I think
so old enough to understand kind of, what's going on.
Maybe I was 13 or 14. Maybe I was 13 at the time. I think this second incident happened even earlier. So I actually should have probably told this one first. But again, it's a housing project in New York City. It's probably one of the most dangerous, probably one of the worst housing projects in New York City at the time. And death was a common occurrence. Gun violence is a common occurrence. But
and this is not the 80s, right?
This is not the 80s at this time, though. Okay. This is the 90s at this time. It might have been the very early 90s, though, so it could have been like 90, 91, something like that.
Yeah, so still some 80s BS going
absolutely,
on. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, the 90s in New York City was very violent. So, things have obviously changed a lot with all of the gentrification and this and that. But the 90s in New York City was pretty wild, as were the 80s. But my sister is 12 years older than me. So at this time, I was a kid. My sister was already, I guess, I don't know, maybe 20, 21 or something like that, maybe, at this time. So she was, out doing her own thing, going out. She had a job. She would go out and stay out late. And, I can remember sometimes waiting up for my sister to come in. And this one night she came in and she was like frantic, distraught. Something had happened. I didn't really understand. She was calling 911, and I didn't really understand what happened. But she was coming into the building this evening, and it was late, and she happened upon a dead body. Basically, somebody had been killed in the lobby, shot in the head in the lobby. It was somebody that we knew too, as well. Somebody that was very well known in the neighborhood, that was popular, that was, cool, always had, nice clothes, nice sneakers, this and that. Just somebody that was very well known in the neighborhood. And my sister just happened to be coming home at that time and stumbled upon his body. And this was something that really shook up the neighborhood and was just, reverberated through the neighborhood. And it was wild. It was wild for her to discover that, and for that to be my sister, and for, everybody to be talking about it. And again, that was just another moment where it was just like, damn, like this is real. And at any moment that could be it for you. So yeah, that was another wild situation, and dealing with that in the months and months after that, and trying to find his killer. And in a lot of instances like this where things happen in the neighborhood,
they don't usually find him.
They don't sometimes, but oftentimes the streets know. The streets often know who did what and what actually happened, even if it never gets to law enforcement, or if somebody's never really prosecuted, or whatever the case may be. The streets know. So I mean, I think at that time, the identity or the name of the person who actually did it was definitely out there. I can remember that, even being a young kid, I can remember the name of the person who more than likely did it, being floated around. But again, just to see this other young person, not even in their prime yet, to just be done, just to be finished.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, stumbling upon a dead body. I've never stumbled upon a dead body, and I've talked about it in like a episode that's about to come out right now. But I've definitely smelled a dead body. Like I remember, and then I have a story that's similar to what you just said. Me and my boys were like, we used to play manhunt around the block, right? So it's kind of like a suburban neighborhood that we lived in, like just more houses, no apartments nearby. And so, cars are parked in their driveway and on the street. So we're running around, and it's like, how we've had a heat wave this last week. So it was like around the same time of the year. So that we had like a heat wave. So it was really hot. We're playing manhunt, and every time we reach this one spot on the block, it's just like the smell is something that we've never smelled before. It's horrible. And throughout the day, I guess because it was hot, we didn't know at the time it was a body, but because it was hot, it was decaying, I guess, faster. Right. So the smell just got worse and worse. I'm talking within like an hour. We're like, nah, it's so, you're talking, 10, 11-year-old boys talking about, nah, that smell is so bad. We can't even go by there anymore. Like, and then we just was like, all right, I guess the game is over or whatever. We all go inside. And at like 8 p.m, my parents, they call us into the room. And they're like, yo, did you know they found a dead body in the trunk of a car at the end of the block? It was on the news. Apparently somebody had murdered this young girl like out in Jersey, chopped up her body, and then like ditched the car right there. We were standing right next. Like when I saw the photo of the car, my spine instantly shivered because I was like, I remember standing right in front of that car, like literally 3 feet away. Just saying like, yo, what is that smell? That's, my 10-year-old brain can't wrap around like, whoa, a chopped up body was right there in the trunk. And that's what I was smelling. Like now I feel horrible. And it's so funny, like a couple years later when I was around the same age as in your story, I had a friend named around the corner and it's 4th of July and I'm walking to the store and, New York City fireworks go off all the time. People can't get enough. And I'm walking around the corner and I heard a set of fireworks that sounded a little different. And I was like, that's interesting. By the time I got to the store and got back around the corner, I saw a bunch of cops around that same area where the dead body was in the trunk. And turns out somebody had just gotten shot in their garage. And apparently it was like a well-known guy in the neighborhood. He was like a big weed dealer or something like that. And apparently this guy, his name, I didn't even realize it, but his name was spray painted on almost every pole in the neighborhood. And apparently some guys just ran in the garage where he was at and like shot him up, but it blended in perfectly with the fireworks. And I was a block away. Like if I had just turned around, I could have probably seen the guys running. Like not that I would have wanted to, I don't want to get put in that predicament, but like to know that happened that close to where I was, and crime doesn't usually happen in that neighborhood. Like that was also very surreal for me.
Well, I'm sure that was by design for them to do that at that time when the fireworks was going off. Probably.
And that's what had me like tripping more because it makes me think like, whoa, like if somebody really wanted to come delete you, and make no loud like excursions about it, 4th of July is like perfect. Like, you know how many gunshots probably get disguised on 4th of July or around that time?
That's how they did it in Godfather 2. You ever saw Godfather 2?
Nah.
You never seen any of the Godfather movies? Come on, bro.
I've seen Scarface though.